Welcome back to another edition of the Sooner Pocket Podcast. I'm Sam Knight here with Chris. Make sure to check out www.soonerpocket.com. A lot of good pregame and postgame content there. Chris, have you had any snow up in the land of Chicago today?
We got quite a bit of snow today. I'd wager probably just under 2 inches. But it's been in the upper 30s, up to about 40 degrees afterwards. So it's pretty much all melted now. But we had a nice little bit of snow for a bit. It's nice and heavy. Is it blizzarding in Oklahoma yet?
No, no. The only blizzard we get is heat blizzards.
Or Dairy
Um,
Queen?
yes, or Dairy Queen. I'll tell you though, in Cleveland tonight, total destruction of a snowstorm. Um, Players down there on the field were getting pelted. Kind of cool to see. Steelers up 19-18, about 4 minutes to go in that one. Um, Hopefully, Steelers will pull that out. It's hard for me to ever want to watch the Browns do anything right. Seeing them 2-8 this year is nice. It's 2 wins too many for them as far as what they deserve. The way they got rid of Baker for one, signing Deshaun Watson for another, and then lastly, just being from Cleveland. Nobody actually likes Cleveland. The people that live there because they have to. Um, so, you know, to each their own, but rooting for the Steelers tonight. Um, this week, we've got a big game. OU hosting Alabama. First time at Owen Field for the Tide since, I believe, 2002. Um, we had a home and home with Alabama in '02 and '03, if I'm not mistaken, maybe '99 and 2000. But it was one of those sets of seasons. Going to be an interesting game. Jalen Milroe making the trip to Norman. I think there were a lot of people that coming into the season looked at this game as potentially having a different setting, having a different stage for it than what it has. Alabama with the losses that they have, and Oklahoma teetering on the brink of bowl eligibility. Not sure that they're going to get there. I'm not sure what to make of this one this week. I feel like on one hand it could be a colossal crap fest for OU, and we could be down 4 scores before we even hit halftime. On the other side of it, Alabama's shown some vulnerabilities this year. If you catch them at the right moment, hit them with the right set of plays, and momentum goes your way, you can hold Alabama in check and compete with them for a long stretch of the game. Which way do you see this game more likely leaning?
I I see this game going just like the Tennessee game and the Ole Miss game, and up until like 5 minutes left of the second quarter of the Texas game, and the same way that the Missouri game went. Well, most of the Missouri game, up until the fourth quarter of the Missouri game, I should say. I think our defense is going to give us hope. I think Danny Stutzman, Billy Bowman, Ethan Downs, Woody Washington, R. Mason Thomas, I think they're going to combine for just one heck of a game. I think we'll probably hold Alabama under 30 points. Heck, we might hold them under 25 points. But however many points Alabama scores is how many yards our offense will gain total. So I think our defense is going to make us watch all 60 minutes thinking, man, we're one play away. We just need this one play to go our way, and we'll be right back in this thing, or we'll have the lead. And it's never going to happen. Uh our main difficulty over the past few years has been mobile quarterbacks. We've excelled with one mobile quarterback this year in LaNorris Sellers, South Carolina quarterback. He had a nice run against us on the first drive of the game after they intercepted Michael Hawkins. He ran for like I think it was like 22 or 23 yards, and his next 12 carries he gained 1 or 2 yards total. So like we know how to combat mobile quarterbacks. We haven't faced one of Jalen Milroe's capacity yet. And then on top of all the other issues we've been having in the secondary lately, allowing Drew Pine to torch our defense a couple weeks ago, we now have to contain Ryan Williams. And I don't know. I think that our defense will let us stay in the game for about as long as they possibly can, but our offense will just crap away every opportunity that they're given.
You're probably not far off. Alabama right now, as of Thursday evening, sitting at a 13.5 point favorite against the Sooners in Norman. Um, my guess right out of the gate is Alabama's going to cover that. They're probably going to cover that and then some. Um, if I was going to put a score prediction on it right now, I would probably say 45-10, Alabama. I think they're going to put a lot of points up early. They're going to slow down second half. OU is not going to be able to do too much offensively. We will break a nice couple plays, probably very early in the game, out of our initial script, and then some late in the game in garbage time. So OU will get some good looks, but overall, Alabama will contain us. My prediction on the game's 45-10. If it makes you feel any better going into this one, I played college football 25 today, and R. Mason Thomas got a defensive 2 point conversion off of a blocked extra point um, against Alabama. So do with that what you will. But
Well, if it happened in college football 25, surely that
hey,
means it'll happen in real life.
yeah, no doubt. Jalil Farouk, interesting addition, late addition to the injury report. He was thrown on there this evening. Our receiving core, we had so much hope going into the Missouri game because we had Deion Burks back. We had Jalil Farouk back. Farouk had some slow movement late in the game against Missouri. Now I'm sure due to some of the recovery. And then Deion Burks got walloped on that. I think it was our final drive or our second to last drive, maybe.
It's our second to
Um,
last play of the game.
yeah, but got absolutely popped and probably is going to be out for the season. There's number one, I think we're probably not going to win one of these final two games, so it's not going to be a bowl game for him to play in. And number two, being where he is with the injuries he's had this year, I don't see what the advantage really is to him coming back and trying to work through and play um, a week from Saturday. I know he probably wants to, but as far as what maybe he needs to do for his health, and for him being able to come back strong next year, I don't know that there's much chance of him really coming back this season. So he's probably done for the year. Farouk probably as well, if he misses this week. So I don't know. Just it's a
It's been a perfect
messy,
storm of bad circumstances.
yeah. I would say the worst circumstance of all of it was probably not a circumstance. I think it was a choice, and it was Seth Luttrell and Joe John Finley being made co-OCs over the team. I know in the offseason, I can't speak for everybody, but there were a lot of people that I saw who really commended the hiring decision, um, giving Luttrell the primary nod on offensive play calling, with Finley being the co-OC. A lot of people liked it. I think in retrospect, digging a bit more into Luttrell's record, um, you can probably question whether he should have been put in that position in the first place of being an offensive play caller for our school. But it's academic at this point. It happened. But definitely, probably the biggest mistake that set the course for where our offensive production was at this year. Injuries obviously were bad. I hate to go back to anything good Lincoln Riley did, but the thing Lincoln Riley did well was work with second string guys. He put together offensive masterpieces with that. Looking back at our 2017 season, looking at some of the names that scored touchdowns against Ohio State, some of the names who pulled off big plays against Georgia, against Texas, against all these other teams that year. Um, and it's like you see some of those guys and you don't even remember them really. Um, so it's just disappointing to know that that mistake was probably what laid the foundation for where the rest of this season went.
And something that's been really terrible has been our offensive line. I'll get back to the offensive coordinator in a minute, but our offensive line, just the complete lack of an offensive line this year would have made it hard for any offensive system to succeed. But you look at Lincoln Riley's years, and like you said, I don't like talking good about him either, but it'd be foolish to act like he didn't do good here. Uh, when you look back at his systems, there were years when we did not have good offensive lines. Like I remember in 2020, we started off with one of the worst offensive lines in the country, but we were still scoring almost 30 points a game. In our first 3 games of the season, we went 1-2, yes, but in those games, it was our defense that cost us those games. I think we lost. It was like 37-31 to Iowa State, and then we lost like 38-35 to Kansas State. But both of those we had 2-score fourth quarter leads. What really made Lincoln Riley's offenses successful were that he had a really good understanding of what defenses were looking for, and he knew how to scheme guys around the defense. I mean, look at USC's offense this year. I wouldn't exactly call them good. I wouldn't exactly call that a very talented offense. But but every game, no matter who they're playing, they always seem to just have these guys wide open every play. He he gets commended for his quarterback work, but I honestly think his best work is with wide receivers because he gets these guys who never go to who don't go to the NFL, who would be the third string wide receiver at Syracuse at best. He puts them out there against these top tier teams, and they get 7 catches for 130 yards and 2 touchdowns because his scheme allows them to get so open. Something that really hindered our offense all season was Seth Luttrell did not seem to have the knowledge of how to scheme people open, even scheme the ground game open. Everything was just vanilla, run up the middle, run outside, run up the middle, run outside. His situational play calling was terrible with wide receiver screens on third and long, uh, or just the same 2 play calls every time on first and second down, which resulted in 3rd and 9, 3rd and 10, 3rd and 11. There was that, and also I don't know what he was having our receivers do in the offseason, because last year something that our receivers excelled at was getting open. They found ways to get wide open even when they were covered from the beginning. They knew things to do to just kind of sneak around defenders. That's another thing that Jeff Lebby did really well. He could really get guys open. And I just I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened. I remember after the spring game, you and I were talking about how poor our defense looked. And we see the defense that's been out there on the field. I have no reason to doubt that the defense we have right now is the same defense that showed up for the spring game, only they couldn't stop our offense. What what happened? What happened to that offense that we had so much potential out there and guys who were dominating our defense, which PFF shows we have the number 2 running defense in the country, the number 11 overall defense with how they grade teams. And what happened? I just, gosh, we need help. We need help. And I don't think we're going to get it this Saturday.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think we are either. You know who's not getting any help is Mike Gundy. Um, OSU feels weird to talk about them and then not be a conference opponent. Um, but probably looking at 0 conference wins for the year. I don't know if that has ever happened in the Gundy tenure. Um, so that's probably where they're headed there. Um, I heard a discussion earlier on the sports animal here um, about whether Venables or Gundy is the first one to get fired if one of them were to get fired at some point in the near future. Um, my thought on it would probably be Venables, because Gundy has had a track record at OSU. He's got a lot of people that really probably want him gone, but he's got a whole lot of people that would keep him there for the sake of consistency and him, um, really for a time they were bringing OSU back from the dead. Um, Venables, by contrast, 10 wins in his second season, which is awesome. He's in the SEC now, though. We've had a lot of talk and not a lot of results. I'm curious to know your thoughts on that hypothetical situation anyway. Not that either of them's getting fired anytime soon, but
I I think I don't think anything would happen to him after this season. I think uh I think what would determine it is how next season looks. Uh if either one of them goes out there and lays an egg like they did this year, they're gone. I I think Venables would probably be the first would probably be the first to go because Oklahoma State has shown a almost stubbornness when it comes to not wanting to get rid of people. Casey Dunn, I think his name is, their offensive coordinator. He's been their offensive coordinator for at least the last 3 or 4 years. I remember they were talking about wanting to fire, fans were talking about wanting to fire him back in 2022 when Kansas State beat them like 48-0 or something like that. And he's still their offensive coordinator to this day. Their offense has been terrible all year. It was terrible last year. It was terrible 2 years ago. It's been terrible, and he's still calling plays for him. Nothing's changed there. Uh, we gave Seth Luttrell 7 games before he got the boot. I guess 8 games. He was the play caller in Arizona, but Mike Gundy, he there is a very real chance that they go 3-9 this year. They play Texas Tech this weekend, which is not going to be an easy game. And then they finish the year at Colorado, which is not going to be an easy game. Venables, the difference here is the difference here is the circumstances. Mike Gundy has been the head coach for Oklahoma State for what, 20, 22 years? Uh, at this point,
I think he's on year 19.
It's I know it's getting close to 20 because I remember that I'm a man, I'm 40 speech that was somewhere around like '05 to '07, maybe '09, I can't remember, but it was a while back, but he's been there for a while and he's led a lot of great teams. 2011, great team there. They almost went to the national championship. 2017, 2016, 2017 both had aspirations of the Big 12 championship and in 2017, maybe even the college football playoff, but OU ruined those hopes for them. Uh, 20, 2019, they weren't terrible. 2020, they began to bounce back. 2021, they were 1 inch away from the college football playoff. Baylor stood them up at the goal line. They were that close from the college football playoff. They've had all these years of success, and now you've reached a point where you've got a lot of good players. You've got Brennan Presley. You've got Ollie Gordon. You've got these defenses that Mike Gundy has been known for in his time, and they are all collapsing at the same time. If you can't have a good running game with the oldest team in college football, I think Oklahoma State returned more seniors than any other team, including the offensive line. I think the offensive line are all like fifth or sixth year seniors. If you can't create a good running game with that and Ollie Gordon, that's a problem. Uh, Venables, on the other hand, this is his third season as a head coach. And as I've said a few times, it's been a perfect storm of bad circumstances. Number one, we're leaving the Big 12 and going into the SEC. Honestly, if we were in the Big 12 this year, we'd probably be with that defense we have, we would probably be 7-3 right now, maybe 6-4. We wouldn't be any better than that. And it would also depend on who we played in there, but we'd probably have at least 6 wins by now. Uh, we're in the SEC, which is a notoriously harder league. Uh, our offensive line, we lost all of our starters from last year. And so we basically had to build a new one from scratch, and that failed miserably. And then the guys who can bail you out the most. Your wide receivers and your running backs, your skill players, our top five wide receivers have been hurt almost all year. Deion Burks had a great first 3 games, and he's played 1 game since. Uh, Jalil Farouk played 1 drive. He's played 1 game since. Uh, Nick Anderson played literally 1 play. He was out there against Tennessee for 1 play, ran a route, and didn't even like. He just kept running. At once that play was over, kept running, went right back into the locker room. Hasn't played since. Jaden Gibson out for the season. Uh, Andrell Anthony played a couple snaps against Temple. Hasn't been out since. You've just got this perfect storm of all these bad things that happened at once in one of the worst possible times. I think Venables has shown enough, in my opinion, to where he's earned the patience of at least one more season, because 2022, our defense was
Absolutely.
terrible. Yeah, 2022, our defense was terrible. 2023, it was pretty good. This year, it's elite. 2022, our offense wasn't bad, but it wasn't great. Last year, it was elite. This year, of course, it's fallen off the rails. His game management has gotten a little bit better each year, despite the fourth quarter being where we lost to Missouri. The fourth quarter, where it was his biggest struggle in 2022, has been one of our biggest strengths the past 2 seasons. He's shown that he knows how to fix these things. Where Mike Gundy seems to be losing how to do things, Venables seems to be gaining things. So it's just, I think, to answer your question, it just all comes down to how next year looks. If next year looks anything close to the same as this year for either coach, I think they're fired at the same time. I think they have a joint meeting.
Yeah. Here's the here's the thing. I think the circumstances don't have anything to do with it myself. Um, I think it comes down to the fact that Venables to this point has proven nothing as a head coach. He's proven he can coach a defense, which is great. Can he coach a holistic football team that can maintain its stature um, and its level of play, its standard through an entire season on both sides of the ball? 3 seasons in a row now, we've seen the answer to that is no. Um, the other side of it too, Gundy has a very large buyout. Venables is a big buyout too, but Gundy has a very large buyout that I don't think OSU right now has the booster money to cover. Um, Venables, absolutely, I agree with you, is entitled to one more year at least. I think it's hard to fire a coach in the middle of his second season or at the end of the second season, unless you're just not winning anything. Um, that's kind of where I fall on it. Is it comes down to the fact that one of them has proven themselves and that they can get results as a head coach. Um, Year 3 right now under Venables. I hear what you're saying on if we were in the Big 12. Um, Venables came to us campaigning on the SEC and us running into the SEC, not being afraid of it. And we have looked like a very sad little puppy right now in the SEC. And it's frustrating, I'm sure, more so than anybody for him and for the players that we have. I think looking ahead to next year, it's going to come down to whether he can actually really contend for a conference title. Because for really, we haven't seriously contended for one. We were in it for a couple of weeks last year, and then we collapsed at the end of the season. Second half of 2022 was bad. This whole year has been bad, aside from the non-con schedule, and even that wasn't great. Um, so I think next year, for him to have some semblance of job security, we have got to be in serious contention for an SEC title at least. Doesn't even have to be a playoff berth, but we have to do something in our conference that shows that we can be a complete team through the course of a year that can compete for a conference title. Um, so we are about out of time here. Real quick, I want to get to 3 games this week that we have. Bama at OU, obviously. I gave my score prediction earlier, 45-10 Bama. Who wins this game and by what margin?
I've got Alabama winning. I think it'll be a lot lower scoring because, like I said with our defense earlier, but I think the final score will be something along the lines of 27 to probably 27 to 10.
Yeah. Number 5, Indiana. At number 2, Ohio State. Big noon kickoff, I presume, on Fox. Ohio State opens as a 10.5 point favorite. I've got Ohio State in this one. Um, I'll say 52 to 6. I think they keep Indiana out of the end zone. So Ohio State, I think 52 to 6. I think they're going to run Indiana out of the building.
I don't think it'll be that bad. I think Ohio State will win, but but Kurt Signetti is one heck of a coach. Uh, First year that James Madison was in the FBS, he got him to a 9-0 start. First year at Indiana, got him to a 10-0 start. I mean, he just has this reputation for it doesn't matter how big the challenge is for his team. James Madison, their first year in the FBS, no one expected them to get a win. They started off, they were ranked his first year. I don't know if you remember that. They were ranked for like 1 or 2 weeks because he had them rolling. I think he's going to be able to develop a good scheme to stick close at least, but I think Ohio State's just too talented. And as Barry Switzer used to say, it's not about the X's and the O's, it's about the Jimmies and the Joes. And you'd be hard pressed, other than maybe Oregon, to find a more talented roster than Ohio State has. So I'm gonna give the nod to Ohio State, 31 to 20.
That's fair. That's fair. Last one, seeing if Florida can continue its somewhat upward momentum after upsetting LSU last week, 27 to 16. They host Ole Miss as 11.5 point underdogs to the Rebels. This one, I don't think Ole Miss covers that 11.5 point spread. I've got Ole Miss winning this one, but I think you're going to see maybe a 24 to 21 type finish. Something close. Florida's seen a lot of pickup now in the second half of the year that I think was really missing at the front half of the year. Not sure if they were just slow to fire out of the gate, or if maybe there was some development that had to take place, and that's maybe happened since then. But um, yeah, 24-21, Ole Miss.
Their defense has gotten leagues better than they were at the beginning of the year. And DJ Lagway, I I doubt he was ready to start day one because I think he's a true freshman. Doubt he was ready to start day one against Miami, but he's their best chance. I said it against when they were going up against Texas. I said if DJ Lagway isn't playing, then it's not even going to be close. Texas is going to murder him, and that's exactly what happened. Texas murdered him. And then we talked last week with LSU versus Florida. I said if DJ Lagway's playing, Florida has a real chance. Well, DJ Lagway was playing, and Florida ended up winning that one. PFF has him as literally the best deep ball passer in all of college football. No one throws a better deep ball right now than he does, including Jackson Dart, who's been so good. I think it depends on the Ole Miss team that shows up. Uh, if the Ole Miss team that showed up against Arkansas or against Georgia shows up, I'm not convinced Florida will even cross the 50-yard line. If the Ole Miss team that showed up against OU or the Ole Miss team that showed up against Kentucky shows up, or the Ole Miss team that showed up against LSU, they that's been another team like OU was last year. It's been a tale of two teams. They're either dominant or they're a middle of the pack team. No consistency there. So depending on which Ole Miss team shows up, it'll either be I'm going to give two score predictions for this one because I could see it very easily going either way. I could see Ole Miss winning 45 to 7. I could also see Ole Miss winning 20 to 17.
We'll see what happens. See what happens. Um, Final word here. Sum up your visit to Wisconsin's football environment, their stadium, all of that. Sum that up in 2 words.
Absolutely electric.
I like it.
You,
I like
you,
it. They
you just
almost pulled it off against the Ducks.
you
Almost.
don't you see the jump around on TV, like they'll show just kind of little snippets of it. You don't realize how cool of a thing that is to experience until you're there, especially if Wisconsin's unranked beating the number one team in the country heading into the fourth quarter. That is cool to experience.
Yep. 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 All right. Sooner Pocket Podcast. I'm Sam Knight. For Chris Knight, thanks for listening. We both gave predictions that predict very resounding defeats for the Sooners this week against the Alabama Crimson Tide. Fingers crossed. I hope we're both wrong. Hope you can pull it out. Everybody have a good rest of the week. Stay safe. Boomer Sooner.
Boomer Sooner.